Nick Nurse had a lot to say today about Jeff Dowtin and his plans for him going forward, as well as calling him an upgrade at the backup point guard position. So we'll discuss that, as well as Jonas Valanciunas showing some love to the city of Toronto and giving high praise to new Raptors center Jakob Poeltl. And we also have a Fred VanVleet availability update and a whole bunch more we're going to cover in this video. So before we dive into the first topic of discussion, I'm going to re-announce it. Obviously, we've been partnered with Coolbet in the recent months, and we're doing a massive giveaway for the Toronto Raptors game February 28th against the Chicago Bulls out there in Toronto. So if you want 2 free tickets for that game, be entered to win those tickets. Check out the link down below, sign up for Coolbet, and then put your name in on the Google form I have linked in the description as well as the pinned comment. Just put your name, your email, as well as the screenshots proving you signed up for Coolbet. Absolutely free to sign up. They're sportsbook regulated in Ontario, available all across Canada. And prove that you signed up, and then you'll be entered to win 2 free tickets to the Raptors Bulls game. Get to see DeMar DeRozan and the boys coming home. So, a little bit of fun there. Shout out to Coolbet for supporting the podcast. But let's dive into the first topic of discussion. The first thing we're taking a look at is JV showing a major love to Toronto and Jakob Poeltl. Now, Jonas Valanciunas was a fan favorite, still is a fan favorite amongst Toronto Raptors fans, even though he's on another team. And, he hasn't had a lot of games coming back home since he's been traded because obviously, Toronto wasn't playing in Toronto there for a while and stuff. So it's always a nice sight to see. Even though he was traded a while ago, 2019, feels just like yesterday, but it was like 4 seasons ago now at this point. But Jonas loves the city of Toronto. Had some fun comments, regarding his return in last night's game against the Pelicans. And here's a quote essentially from his interview saying, "I'm driving throughout the city and I know all the streets," says the popular 30-year-old center. It's crazy Jonas Valanciunas is already 30 years old. And, I'm familiar with everything in Toronto. 6.5 years is a long time in your life. It still gives me the chills every time I come here. Goes on to say that Toronto has amazing fans, as I've seen throughout the years. When I was with the team, they are unbelievable. And went on to say that I had a connection with the fans and with the people of Toronto, so it was a special time for me. And the Toronto Star summarizes stuff, and he says, "I miss the winters for sure," he said, before quickly adding that's hard to get tired of the subtropical weather in New Orleans. So, JV's not only most Toronto Raptors players, some former Raptor players, show love to, Raptors fans, the organization, this, that, and whatever. But, the city and all that. But rarely do they show love to the weather out there in Toronto. And obviously, Jonas being from Lithuania makes him feel like home, being in Toronto with the cold winters, lots of snow and all that sort of stuff. So he's showing love there. And this interview was had before the game against the Toronto Raptors, where Jakob Poeltl had a career high in rebounds, was absolutely dominant. But he talked about his former rookie because Jakob Poeltl and Jonas Valanciunas were both on the Raptors together, in Jakob Poeltl's early years, or early season, rookie season. So he talked about how he's really happy for Jakob Poeltl, developing, especially with the San Antonio Spurs, growing to his game, and now having a big opportunity with in terms of playing time, in terms, getting an actual run for a team like the Toronto Raptors at this point. And he hoped he didn't get cooked too much. Well, unfortunately for Jonas, he did get cooked by the Yak attack, the Yak and Skills duo we have in the front court, even though Jonas did have a big game himself. So all love to Jonas Valanciunas. He is an honorary Raptor forever. One moment that I always remember when he was traded from the Toronto Raptors midseason, he came back to watch the Toronto Raptors' first playoff game. Jonas Valanciunas, and one of my all-time favorite Raptors, so showing love there. But the next thing we're taking a look at is Nick Nurse calls Jeff Dowtin an upgrade. And Nick Nurse was asked a lot about Jeff Dowtin at his practice availability today, because for people that didn't watch the game last night, Nick Nurse, maybe he's listening to Raptors Digest podcast. I know I'm not the only one who's been calling for it, but Jeff Dowtin finally got a proper opportunity mid-game, a rotation piece, especially with Fred VanVleet out. Got 19-20 minutes in last night's outing, and he played really well. Now, Malachi Flynn has really been, for most of this season, the backup point guard. If you're not counting Scotty Barnes is taking ball handling duties, Pascal Siakam taking ball handling duties behind Fred VanVleet. But Malachi Flynn has gotten a lot of that run when we were sort of running one of Flynn, Dowtin, or Delano Banton out there. And last night, Nurse shifted gears a little bit and turned the reins over to Jeff Dowtin Jr., who I've been saying every opportunity he's been given, he's looked really good. Even if he's not hitting every single one of his shots, right? He's quick, he's mobile, he's a long defender. And Nick Nurse kind of echoed some of those comments, talking about how they like especially Jeff Dowtin's just aggression, his motor out there on the court. He plays with a lot of passion, a lot of energy. So defensively, he's really brought it, which is a prerequisite to get on the court for this Toronto Raptors squad. And then Nick Nurse even used the term upgrade a bunch of times in his post-game presser when talking about Jeff Dowtin. Now, he initially just flat out said, we look at Malachi, we look at Delano Banton. Sure, they've been decent at times, but we're looking to get a little bit of an upgrade in there. So we're, Jeff Dowtin's, referring to Jeff Dowtin there at that point. And then as the interview sort of went along, he mentioned later at it that, we're looking for Jeff Dowtin. He seems like that upgrade that's going to be out there. So we'll see if he fully is, going forward. So Interesting comments from Nick Nurse, sort of referring to he thinks Jeff Dowtin is the upgrade. Obviously, he also prefaced that Jeff Dowtin has to prove it with the opportunities he might be getting in future games. Nick Nurse is always unpredictable who's actually, in terms of deep bench players that's actually going to get run. But talked about, especially in regards to Malachi Flynn, that he's bigger, he's quicker, he's a little bit more athletic. So use that quote directly. So Nick Nurse, given that praise to Jeff Dowtin, which, he's been my favorite guy out of those three players, in terms of on-court abilities this year, a bit older than those guys, but I don't know. I'm a big fan of Jeff Dowtin's game, and I think he has a lot of room to grow. He's a leader. I made a big rant about this last night, but I like that Nick Nurse is giving some credit there, but even if it's a little bit weird that he's kind of bashing on, especially a guy like Malachi Flynn in these post-game segments. But I don't know. You guys said in the live stream last night, you guys want to see more opportunities for Jeff Dowtin Jr. there. And it seems like Nick Nurse might be willing to give it to him, because even with Fred VanVleet when he comes back, Malachi Flynn was getting a decent amount of run there for a solid month, and he was a little bit inconsistent, as Nurse said, inconsistent, he's decent at times, right? But if Jeff Dowtin can even be given that much opportunity over the next couple months, then, as we enter playoff time, play-in time, wherever the Raptors going to be, that's going to be essential. But there was one question that was brought up. I'm not sure it was from Michael Grange, but I forget who actually asked it in the scrum or the practice scrum, and they talked about Jeff Dowtin's on a two-way contract, and Nick Nurse sort of said, hey, and, the question that was asked, are you sort of going to get a feel for Jeff Dowtin to see if you want to convert him from a two-way to an actual full roster player so he can actually get some run come playoff time? And Nurse was kind of reserved on that. He said, it's definitely a valid point. It's something we're going to have to look at and stuff. But that is a big concern with Jeff Dowtin now at this point. So Nick Nurse is going to have to run this guy some actual opportunity, give him some actual minutes, or else I'm going to be out here on these podcasts calling for more, free Jeff Dowtin minutes, on these videos, because we need to figure out whether or not he's going to be a key piece, a backup point guard for us in our playing games and our playoff games, or if he's just going to be a guy we wait to develop and figure out what to do with him in the future. But let me know what you guys think we should do with Jeff Dowtin Jr. Next thing we're taking a look at is big changes coming for the Raptors' GOAT, Kyle Lowry. Now, Kyle Lowry this season, unfortunately, just hasn't had the greatest year. There's no real other way to put it. Kyle Lowry, he's when he signed that 3-year contract, we said, okay, for the immediate season, which was last year, it's a good deal for the Miami Heat, bringing in a very high caliber point guard, to ball out down there in Miami. But 3 years at $30 million a season is a lot of money for Kyle Lowry, given his age and injury history. It seems to be catching up with him this season, as if you look at the stats, right, Kyle Lowry, if you pull him up, that's not Fred VanVleet. Kyle Lowry, only 12 points per game, 5 assists, 4 rebounds this year, 33% from behind the three-point line, and under 40% from the field. A couple turnovers a night. Defense isn't at the same level it's been in years past. So, it's not the Kyle Lowry that Raptors fans are accustomed to seeing on night in, night out game. And, with the emergence of Gabe Vincent down there with the Miami Heat, news has come out that, if I can get the right screenshot pulled up, yep. Kyle Lowry is at least aware of the possibility that he could be moved to the bench, though that decision is still pending and could hinge on how the Heat and point guard Gabe Vincent play during this 3-game road trip, which continues Saturday, in Charlotte, ends on Monday in Philadelphia. So this has been talked about a bunch. Chatter's been about this. A lot of Heat fans have been calling for it, but they want Gabe Vincent to be the starting point guard down there in Miami. And now with Kyle Lowry dealing with some injuries and stuff, they're getting an eye test on how Gabe Vincent will potentially run the point guard spot. But it's just unfortunate to see a guy get older, fan favorite in Toronto, Kyle Lowry. You want to see him. If the Raptors aren't going to be winning a chip, a lot of people are rooting for Kyle Lowry down there. So, if he's coming off the bench, it's kind of unfortunate. And a lot of people are saying, hey, if he's coming off the bench in Miami, it might be a little bit, just bring him home, because he'd be a great, we're talking about Jeff Dowtin. I'm a big Jeff Dowtin guy, but Kyle Lowry, even in his older age, would be a much better bench piece for this Toronto Raptors team. even at $30 million per year, bring him in next season because So's cap isn't on the books for that long of time period. But I don't know. Am I talking crazy here? Probably can't do it with the amount of money we're going to have to spend next year. But I like those pipe dreams of bringing back our top guys. But the next thing we're talking about is a Fred VanVleet availability update. Now, Fred VanVleet obviously did not play in the game against the New Orleans Pelicans last night. It was a late scratch due to personal reasons. And we got some info from Doug Smith, basically giving us an update what's going on with Fred VanVleet, saying that he's been excused from practice today for personal reasons. Whether he plays on Saturday in Detroit will be determined on Saturday. So still no insight in terms of what is actually going on with Fred VanVleet in terms of personal reasons, but we do know that he's not practicing today and he is questionable for tomorrow's game once again. So if he's questionable game in, game out, then it doesn't seem like it's going to be something that's going to keep him out very long term. But wishing the best for Fred VanVleet, and hopefully he's able to play tomorrow. Everything gets solved, whatever he's dealing with personally, because I want to see how this team looks with a fully healthy, with the exception of Otto Porter Jr. contingent. But the final thing we're taking a look at is Pascal Siakam responding to the reporter that butchered his name. And we showed that video on a recent vid about I think it was a CNN reporter talking about all stars from Africa and stuff, butchered Giannis Antetokounmpo's name, butchered Siakam's name, calling him Pascal Sakim or Sakim, and Pascal responded with this on Twitter. Pascal Shakim is crazy. Just responding there. So Pascal doesn't seem too butthurt about it or anything like that, showing a bit of humor with that going on. Shaquem Olajuwon with the spin, with the footwork. You'll love to see it. But people are roasting me. I was making I got hyped to one podcast, I think last year, compared to the Hakeem Olajuwon. Jokingly. Footwork probably, so I don't know. But Shaquem Olajuwon, it's happening right now. But folks, you guys are the best to make this far. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you want those free tickets, we're going to do the giveaway in the next couple days. So sign up for Coolbet, enter your name down below. Anyways, appreciate you guys as always. I'm signing out. Cheers.